Paul, Hazel and I have a burning question for you.
Sure.
You're in the process of writing Temple General. You're about 2/3 of the way through. How much has the outline changed from when you wrote it, I think about 4 months ago?
The third act has undergone a lot of revision. A large portion of the story originally was going to take place, I'll just say, elsewhere. That's now been reduced to 3 chapters or so, and then the bulk of it takes place before then, because I've got more stuff I can throw in.
So how do you write an outline? What's your first step?
So my first step is to write basically a paragraph about what the book would be about.
So one paragraph outlines 145,000 words.
Well, that's just the starting point. In the case of a book that comes later in a series, I'll have notes in the previous book about things I want to include going forward. But if I'm starting from scratch, I'll have a list of, to give an example, let's say I was writing Lord of the Rings. I've got a concept that a group of adventurers have to get together and take a MacGuffin to some location somewhere.
A MacGuffin?
A MacGuffin, that's just a term for a thing that needs to be transported. In the case of Lord of the Rings, of course, it's a ring. Okay. So that's just the basic outline, right? And then I might have some notes on who the characters are going to be. Later on, I'll expand on that.
So when you mean later on, so you write the paragraph, and then what do you do?
Well, I have paragraphs for lots of different books that I'm working on in terms of development. But at some point in time, I'll start thinking more about how does the story progress? How do these characters come together? How do they get where they're going? What's going to happen to them on the way? And then I begin to expand on that outline. And usually that takes the form of breaking it down into scenes or chapters and then fleshing out later exactly what happens in each chapter. For example, Lord of the Rings, they go to Rohan, right? A couple of the...
Sure.
Yeah. So what happens in Rohan? Who do they meet? What happens? What are the bad guys doing? All this kind of stuff.
Hazel's very interested in
yes,
this.
She's very
wants
interested.
You to keep talking.
It's all part of the process.
So if we look at your outline, how many pages is that?
This is 28 pages.
So 28 pages. How many words is in that?
10,758 according to Word.
So 10,000 words is outlining 145,000.
Yes.
And you mentioned that it changed dramatically. So you don't stick to your own outline. Why?
If I were to go back to the one paragraph description, that remains the same. The difference is in the details. But of course, details make up different chapters.
But sometimes even the details change. You've told me,
Yep.
I think it was today, I just had this great idea. This was going to happen. It was 3 chapters, and then I started writing it, and it's so different now.
Yes, that's true. A lot of the times during the writing process, I'll think of something else, or the characters will lead me somewhere else. It's kind of the best of both worlds. I like to have a nice outline to work from, but at the same time, it's nice to be able to make stuff up as you go and adapt that outline as you go.
But aren't you making it all up as you go, even when you're writing the outline?
Yeah, but an outline's like a roadmap, right? I've tried writing books before without an outline, and it just peters out because the story will take you so far, but if you don't have a clear view of where you're going, you just can't get there. So, or at least I can't, anyway.
And your method of outlining is actually like another method, isn't it?
Yeah, I've heard it described as something called a snowflake method, where you keep expanding on concepts and expanding and expanding and expanding until you have a full story. I didn't read about that till after I had come up with this way of doing it, so I'm not sure if it's exactly the same.
It's very similar.
It's
I
similar.
have looked at it for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've also spent years creating role-playing game campaigns, so I'm quite familiar with leading paths to an end to a conclusion.
And does Hazel like to role-play games?
Yes, she wants to role-play going outside right now, I think.
Oh, careful. Hazel, do you want to go outside? And that's the end.